It's a beautiful day out there. Time to explore. Standing about 20-30 yards off the road, Piney Canyon Road here in the Chiricahua Wilderness in southeast Arizona. And I'm sure like anybody like us who goes out boondocking and tries to get away, we come across little, I don't want to call it graveyards, a grave. This is Frank and Grace Hands. Frank passed, he lived from 1862 to 1963, and Grace K. 1936, excuse me. And Grace was 1876 to 1955. We run into this all the time. Now, who were Frank and Grace? I don't know. I'm going to tell you a little about them that we found on the internet. When we got back to Tucson, Melody sat down at her computer and, based upon her experience in doing family history research, she was actually able to find a good deal of information about Frank and Grace Hands. Frank, whose actual name was Francis H. Hands, was born on July 25th, 1862 in Kings, Weston, England, the son of James and Charlotte. He came to the United States on April 16th, 1888 at age 25 aboard the ship Sevilla. He was traveling alone, and the passenger list records his occupation as a carpenter. His brother Alfred arrived here that same summer. The two traveled to Cochise County to join their younger brother John, who had arrived 4 years earlier in November 1884. Three brothers lived for some time at Silver Creek, not far from where Paradise is now located. Frank later registered his future homestead location in January of 1891. There's an interesting story about Frank's brother Alfred James Hand. He was killed by Apaches about a mile and a half from Caves Creek on March 28, 1896. Alfred was alone at the ranch tending his goats while his two brothers were away that day at Pierce. On their return, the brothers found Alfred's body horribly mutilated, the house ransacked, and several horses stolen. The slaying of Alfred Hands, as far as records are available, marks the final Apache slaying in Arizona. Alfred is buried at the Reed Cemetery in Portal, Arizona. After the death of their brother, Frank and John Hands developed the Hilltop Silver Mine and eventually sold out to a larger interest. During the years to follow, they gradually acquired property, which gave them quite extensive holdings in the Chiricahuas. On the census dated April 15, 1910, Frank was living around Bowie, Arizona, and his younger brother, E. John, was residing with him. According to the census, Frank's brother arrived in the United States 4 years earlier than him, and both men were working as copper miners at the time. Frank was naturalized on June 10, 1907 in Cochise County, Arizona. In 1915, when he was 54 years old, Frank married Grace Kenahan, age 37. She was born in New Jersey on October 11, 1876 to George F. and Emmeline T. Grace must have been a rather successful woman, as surmised from the 1910 census of Wilcox. Census lists her working as a trained nurse and living in her home, which she owned free and clear. Frank finally acquired the homestead parcel officially on September 8, 1919, which is described in the documentation as consisting of 147.2 acres. Frank and Grace Hands operated a cattle ranch appearing on the 1920 census. By the 1930 census, Grace's now divorced mother, Emmeline, had moved in with them on the ranch. Frank died on June 20th, 1936 from stomach cancer and was buried on his ranch. Grace survived Frank for nearly 2 decades, remaining on their homestead until she was admitted to Wilcox Hospital. She died there on March 26, 1956 due to heart failure. Her death certificate states that she was cremated at South Lawn in Tucson, Arizona. Can we assume that her ashes were interred here beside Frank, or possibly just her name on the marker? Unless he did a lot more research, it would be hard to find. So, thank you, Melody. We now know much more about Frank H. and Grace K. Hands. On my channel, I have these categories: hiking trails, area attractions, boondocking locations, things like that. And I really don't know what category to put this one under, so I'm probably going to do a one-off public service announcement. I'm going to ask you to do something for me. When you run across a little graveyard, a single grave site, take out your camera, take a picture of the gravestone. Try to make sure it's nice and clear. If you don't have an app, there's plenty of apps available. Do the GPS locations and write it down. And then when you get access to internet, and I'm going to leave some links down below, that where you can post your picture, put in the details that are on the stone, the location, all these types of things. Melody and I have both done genealogical research over the years, and things like this, the databases that they have for cemeteries and graveyards, it makes doing the research so much simpler. And as you heard me say about who Frank and Grace were, it keeps their memories alive. In the Orthodox faith, we have this expression, may their memories be eternal. Now, I'm not trying to keep their memories eternal. That has a different meaning as eternal in the book of life that God has and everything. But these were some of the first pioneers in this area. Grace dies in 1955. I can't believe that stone was put up in 1955. This chain link fence put around here. I have no idea when all this was done. Now, there are little pebbles on top. Their obituary didn't mention any children. I don't know if somebody's upkeeping this. But for people doing research, this makes it so much simpler. And it does help keep the memory alive of these people. So I'm not going to be so crass to say, please subscribe to the channel or anything like that, thumbs up. But when you're out there and you see something like this, take 5-10 minutes. Take a picture, GPS, use the links below, upload the information, and you're going to be doing a public service for many people. There are so many people out there doing research saying, I wonder what happened to my great grandfather's sister, or my great uncle, he had a wife who were her brothers, and things like this. Things like this are an invaluable resource. So thank you for watching. Please consider my request and have a blessed day. Thank you.